Joining me now is Dr. Kimberly Mehlman-Orozco. She's a human trafficking expert and author of Hidden in Plain Sight, America's Slaves of the New Millennium. Thanks again for joining us there. Now, family reunification must be a complex part of a survivor's journey. Tell us about the ways human trafficking can instill generational trauma in families.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me again and for covering this important topic. It's a really tough issue because the reality is we have started to raise awareness. You see trafficking more in media outlets. You see people being more aware of this topic, and we're better equipped to identify trafficking cases. But unfortunately, there are a dearth of services. After a victim is identified, finding them residential placement, offering vocational training, offering them the complex psychological care that they need to fix the trauma bonding and other things that are mental health issues that are left behind once a survivor is rescued. And as far as the generational issues, oftentimes survivors after they're rescued can find themselves criminalized, they can find themselves re-victimized, and with regards to family reunification, you still do see them treated a certain way depending on the community that they came from, the family that they left behind. Oftentimes they're at risk even before they're trafficked, and so those complex issues, even after a survivor is identified, really aren't being addressed or addressed adequately. And a lot of the money that's going to anti-trafficking nonprofits and other organizations, it is not necessarily being spent in the right manner to really help these survivors thrive post-rescue.
Talk to us about familial trafficking and why it's difficult to uncover when a family member is the trafficker themselves.
Well, again, trafficking in general, it's very clandestine crime. You know, a lot of people are thinking that they're going to see something out of the movie Taken where there's somebody who's physically kidnapped, held against their will. But in reality, it's a little bit more urbane in the way it happens in many cases, including familial trafficking. So there's coercion, there's deception. And specifically when it's a family member, it's very difficult to identify. Even the survivor themselves might not perceive themselves as a victim of trafficking. They might see themselves as doing the familial duty by engaging in a certain type of work or engaging in a certain type of industry because a family member has led them to that, and that's just their lifestyle. So it's especially difficult to uncover because you're having a survivor, a victim, who's not necessarily perceiving themselves as being in an exploitive situation and would never think that a family member is capable of trafficking them or putting them in a situation of enslavement.
And does that impact in some ways how trafficking can become somewhat normalized and accepted within family culture, sometimes spanning generations?
Absolutely, it could be cultural. It can be a cultural expectation, but also just even if a survivor is not trafficked by a family member, even just bringing to light to the community, they fear being ostracized, they fear being judged, and that's something that still does happen even to this day, regardless of the type of trafficking and regardless of the awareness that is being raised. And so it's a very complex issue, and really we're just starting to scratch the surface in the ways in which we can actually help survivors and help them thrive after they've been identified, after they've been rescued. But regardless of whether it's family reunification or helping them to independently thrive post-rescue, this is something that needs greater awareness and it needs greater resources to be able to help the complex issues that are left behind among trafficking victims.
All right, Kimberly, we'll leave it there for the time being. Thanks very much for that. Dr. Kimberly Mehlman-Orozco there.
Thank you.